Welcome to the Powerless Leader Podcast. This podcast exists to equip everyday leaders, those of you without titles, authority, or formal power, to influence your world with clarity, courage, and character. So whether you're leading from the classroom, the cubicle, or the coffee shop, each episode offers mindset shifts, practical tools, and stories to help you lead yourselves and those around you, even when you feel like you're powerless. An episode drops every other Thursday, so I invite you to subscribe, to join us, to watch on YouTube, and do whatever it takes to be a part of our community. And we're going to start right now. Good morning and welcome to the Powerless Leader Podcast. It's great to see everybody on here, though. Can I really see you if you're watching me? Well, I will. Who knows? Maybe I can. No, not really. Last week I talked, or the last time we met, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about seeing ourselves in the mirror and how we perceive ourselves. And I want to kind of continue that discussion with talking about the voices in our head. Yeah, let's talk about that. You know, when I was younger, people used to say to me, you know, it's okay to talk to yourself as long as you don't answer your own questions. Like, what's up with that? I answered my questions all the time. I must be crazy. Yeah, no, I'm not crazy. I do talk to myself all the time, and I even answer my own questions in my head. Sometimes to my benefit and sometimes not. You know, there's a lot of us out there who do that exact thing. We talk to ourselves in our heads, and what we end up doing is our self-talk becomes so negative that it begins to push us down. You know, we hear voices like, you know, they don't really want to hear what you have to say, so you just might as well keep your mouth shut. Or, I'm the new guy in the room. I have no authority here. I shouldn't speak up at all. No, I'm not going to speak up in this case. No, not going to do it. They wouldn't listen to me anyway. We have a lot of voices like that. And for me, a lot of times it was like the voices that echoed through my head time and time and time again were, you're an imposter. Yeah, you are. They one day are going to find out what a fraud you are. You're such a liar. This is not who you're trying to portray. You are not that person. All this negative self-talk that I was telling myself was keeping me from my potential. And believe it or not, while all that self-talk was going on, I was doing some great things. I was on committees, I was serving. I was even had a solid mentor who was helping me grow. But my self-talk, those voices inside my head continued to try to push me down, to try to keep me from speaking and acting and doing the things that I knew I needed to do, because those voices kept telling me that I was a fraud and nobody was going to listen to me. Then if they did, and they eventually really looked deeply, they would find out what a fraud I was. That's all it was. That's the voices that were talking to me. And I had to get over that. And I did, but it was a tough process. You know, we all have voices in our head. We all have sources where they have come from. Some of it has come from, for some of us, it may be an abusive parent. You know, for others, it might be us just convincing ourselves, like I did. That was really my case, just continually convincing myself that I wasn't worth everything that was going on in my life and all the good things. I wasn't worthy of it because I was such a fraud. There's so many root causes there, just our past experiences, authority figures in our life, just even internal fear. And believe it or not, psychologists and scientists have actually shown that our minds try to convince us out of doing things because, you know, our body tends to not want to move. And so we tend to work towards our mind tries to get us to work to inaction rather than action. And so when we get a thought, we're in a meeting and we think, oh, I need to talk about this. I need to share this. Our mind immediately goes, no, you don't need, they're not going to listen to you. Our mind starts playing tricks on us. It starts telling us, Oh, yeah, no, yeah. You're the young guy in the room. You're the young girl in the room. They're not going to listen to you. You're a new hiree. You just joined the team. You have no clout here. Don't speak up. You don't have a voice. All these kind of things can come to play, and our mind does this to us. You know, it's interesting. I love the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And one thing he says in it, he says that every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. And really what this does is it highlights what our internal narrative shapes us, how it shapes us, and how it helps build our identity over time. Because our internal narrative will keep us down and keep us from committing the actions that we need to take to help us become that leader we want to become. And so how do we overcome this? What do we do to overcome these voices in our head as they speak to us? Because sometimes they are the loudest thing in our lives. Well, I call it the 3 R's, okay? Because we all have an inner critic. And these are the 3 R's of the inner critic, all right? Number 1 is to recognize. Recognize this voice. Figure out when it begins to show up. What are its triggers? What brings it to the forefront? What makes it scream the loudest? For me, it's when I have a big event ahead or a big accomplishment, the end of a project, a big speaking engagement. This is when the voice really starts yelling. And I recognize that in my life. You know, what patterns have you established in your life? Begin to think about this. And I recommend that you journal this and start recognizing, when do these thoughts happen? What caused them? What's going on when these start happening? And in fact, if you're a subscriber to my podcast, I will have available to you a journal page to help you focus and bring these thoughts to the forefront and what your triggers are for them. So we do need to learn to recognize our triggers. So once we recognize what triggers us, once we recognize what those voices are, we need to begin to reframe them. We need to change from, I'm just not ready to do this. I can't, not at all, to, I know this is a stretch. I know this is not going to be easy, but it means it'll help me grow. That's a great comment. Now I tell this kind of thing to my students all the time, especially ones that face a lot of stress when they take tests. Their inner monologue, when they face a stressful situation, can either cause them to succeed and to perform well, or their inner monologue can cause them to shut down and not perform well at all. And the way you talk to yourself during stressful moments can help you really succeed or really draw back and fail. So I encourage you to begin adapting that monologue. So instead of like, I can't do this, I'm going to fail, there's no way, this is not going to work for me, I'm done, I might as well just quit and not even try, to saying to yourself, I know this is a stressful moment. But biologists say that during stress, if you have a really positive outlook during stress, it begins opening up your blood vessels and beginning pouring extra oxygen into your body and help build those centers in your mind and your body. And it helps you prepare and perform and do better than you ever expected. I know this stressful moment is difficult. I know that it's going to be hard, but I can set all that aside because I know I am going to grow through this process and I'm going to get better and I'm going to become a better leader because of it. And my voice is going to be heard because of it. If you're wondering where I got all that from, that's from a book called 10 to 25 by David Yeager. Phenomenal read. I recommend it to you if you've not read a book like that. It really speaks to the stress and even dealing with stress in yourself and others. So you might want to pick that up. So again, we're looking to recognize those things, those triggers in our life that cause the negative self-talk. We need to reframe it, saying, I can't do this, I'm going to fail to. I know this is a growth experience, so I'm going to try my best at it. And I know I've prepared for it, so I'm going to go for it. It's going to help me grow. So then we need to begin to replace it. And like I've been mentioning already, those truth-based mental scripts, saying things like, I'm fully prepared for this. I've done my homework. I've researched and laid the groundwork in this project for this team. I've done the assigned task my team leader has asked me to do. I know it inside and out, so I'm ready to talk about it. I'm ready to present what my findings on it. I know it very, very well. And this is a growth time for me, and I'm not going to let that inner voice silence me. Truth-based mental scripts are key. And you really need to work on that. You know, what this really comes down to is mindset. Stephen Covey talks about a couple of different kinds of mindset. The scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset. The scarcity mindset says there's only one pie in the world, one giant pie in the world, and every person, all 7 billion of us, get a slice from that pie. Some people get a bigger slice, some people get a smaller slice, but we all get a slice from the same pie, and there's nothing, I can't increase my territory based on that. I can't. I'm not going to get any further than I ever will, so I might as well just pack it in and leave. That's what the scarcity mindset tells us. And that's what our inner voice many times tries to convince us over and over again to do. But on the other side of that, there's the abundance mindset. That doesn't say there's one gigantic pie that feeds the earth, that there are multiple pies everywhere. In fact, if you can't find a pie to your liking that you could take a gigantic slice of, the abundance mindset says you can make your own pie. That's right. It means you can create your own situation to draw from. That's what the abundant mindset says. That I don't get a sliver of this thing. I get the entire pie because I've worked hard and I've created it for myself. That's what the abundant mindset has to it. And we need to work to convince ourselves of the abundance in life. Yeah, I may be the new guy on the team. I might be the quiet introvert on the team, but I've done my work. I've done my job. And I know if I speak up, I am confident in what I'm about to say, that I've done the work I've needed to do. I keep saying that. I know I do. But that's an important part of our mental mindset, that I can do this. It's going to help me grow. And even if it gets rejected, even if my boss decides not to use the research I've done, I know I've done a great job at it. And I'm going to continue doing that hard work. You know, there's a cost to all of this. There is a cost to negative self-talk. One is influence erosion, because you become insecure because of your negative self-talk. You become hesitant and you have limited visibility. You know, and I used to do that. I used to be really hesitant when I was in a situation on a team, on a committee, when I wanted to speak out. I became hesitant. Other people would speak and all of a sudden the meeting would be over and my voice would never be heard. There's something else you need to remember about this, that your energy impacts others, even in silence. When you don't speak out, because there may be a need, and your voice may be a need to be heard in that room. And your silence, others are watching. And if you want to raise your leadership ability, you can't always be silent. Sometimes silence is good, but sometimes you need to speak up. You need to silence that inner critic, because when you begin to silence your inner critic, you can begin to empower others and empower others to silence their own inner critic so that they too can grow as a leader. And what that does is it builds your influence even more. I have a question for you. What kind of leader do you want to become? What kind of influence do you want to create? Your mindset needs to align with that vision of who you want to be and what kind of influence you want to have. So, as we wrap up today, a couple of questions for you to encourage your self-awareness. When is your inner critic the loudest? Keep that in mind. Whose voice from your past might that be? And maybe it's time you silence it. And what truth can you use to replace the lie that you've been telling yourself for so long? Now, I want to wrap up with this simple thought. You cannot speak with confidence if you constantly second guess your worth. Let me say that again. You cannot speak with confidence if you constantly second guess your self-worth. Are you second guessing your self-worth? Begin to change that inner monologue to build your self-worth again. So, closing challenge. Some practical things as we wrap up here. I'm down to my 15 minutes, so I'm going to wrap up real quick. Track your inner critic for one day. If you're a subscriber, subscribe and get that journal piece that I'm going to send so you can track that inner critic. Reframe each thought you have. Write it down. Write down those negative thoughts and then rephrase it in a positive way. And finally, ask yourself, what would the best version of me say instead? All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed today. I hope it has helped. I'm wanting to add value to you. That's one of my goals. That's one of my missions, is to add value to others and see them grow. So if this helped you, leave a comment, subscribe, tell others about it, share this podcast with your friends, and let me know what you think. Thank you for tuning in today. I'll see you again in 2 weeks.